So if you saw my other video that I posted for Folklore Friday, obviously you could tell that I recorded in the same day, and I ate them brownies. Like I said I would. Smashed on them. I told y'all I was gonna smash on them brownies. I told y'all, and I had to. They were too good. Again, they were Reese's brownies. How could I not? Some good, warm, fudgy, chocolatey brownies with peanut butter chips. Like, how could I not? Y'all wanted me to fight that? No. What's good in the YouTube hood? It's your girl Luna Nova, and I'm back with another one for y'all today. Some of the spookiest stories that you'll ever hear about are never coming from Hollywood. They're passed down from Indigenous peoples from generation to generation. I'm back with more spooky Indigenous stories because y'all asked for it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Y'all keep asking for part 2s. I'm gonna do my best to make sure that I deliver them. But again, I wanted to make sure that with these Indigenous stories that I made sure to pick only Indigenous creators, because there was a few people that were hating in the comments that said I shouldn't be talking about these things, even though I wasn't. It's almost like I picked those videos that way the Indigenous people could tell them themselves. But I digress. We're gonna move on past that negative energy. These tales are sacred. They're rooted in land, spirit, and survival. And they carry warnings just as much as they carry chills. Today, we're diving into more spooky Indigenous stories that will make you think twice about what's really out there in the dark. So y'all already know what it is. Go ahead and grab you a drink, grab you a snack, hell, grab you some protection items if you need them, because you know the kid has them. And let's go ahead and get into these spooky Indigenous stories, part 2.
I wanted to share a story because I've been watching a girl sharing stories, and I'm going to try to tag her because she inspired me. She was sharing drinking stories, and this isn't mine. I was about 5 or 6 years old when this happened, and my grandma and her boyfriend were going too far. Like, they were drinking for New Year's and everything, and like they were still drinking and everything, and they went to see mom and them because my mom and them used to bootleg, and my mom got worried. She's like, no, I'm not gonna sell to you. I want to help you get better. I'm gonna like nurse you guys. I'm gonna make you guys soup and everything, and like, this has got to stop. So they stayed the night with us, and on that first night, about 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, this party turned on like a light switch. Music all of a sudden started, and it sounded like there was like 100 people downstairs. It sounded like the best party ever, people laughing. Dad jumped up and he had his gun. He was telling us to stay up there, but we didn't stay up there. We went and followed, and I remember sitting on the basement stairs looking over at Grandma and them, and there's only one lonely light on where they were, and they had a case of beer, they had a big bottle of wine, they had cigarettes and everything. And my dad was like, where did you guys get all this? But they were too busy laughing. They were drunk as a skunk already. So my dad was like, Louise really wanted you guys to sober up. Please try. And he took the alcohol and everything, and he dumped it out on them and went to bed. They went to bed, and in the morning they came up like kind of sheepish and everything, and they tried again to like sober up and everything. The next night came, and it happened again, exactly the same. We got scared, wakened up with this weird party. Dad jumped up, grabbed his gun, ran downstairs. We followed. I was sitting on the stairs again looking over there, and my dad was really after Bobby, and he said, where are you guys getting this stuff? Like, how are you getting this? Bobby, answer me. How are you getting this? And Bobby was laughing, sitting there, and he said, I go outside to the shed, and he gives it to me. Something was giving them alcohol, keeping them drinking. So I have a paranormal story time for you guys, and this happened when I was around 12 years old, and I was at my cousin's house, and we were gonna have a sleepover over there. It was me,
my cousin, and our other cousin just across the street. So I was over there early, and we're just kind of hanging out, and her older sisters decided to go for a cruise, and her parents went to go get pizza and everything for us, and they're gonna rent a movie for us to watch, and we decided to watch a scary movie. And so it was me and my cousin. We're both 12, and her little sister was there, and one of their little cousins. And we were sitting in her room, and we could hear those other ones, in her room. They were playing, and all of a sudden they just started screaming, and we just kind of got quiet, and they come bolting into the room, and they were freaking out, and then all of a sudden they just started laughing really hard, and I was like, what happened? And they couldn't calm themselves down, so we just kind of ended up laughing. We're like, what? Like, what is it? Like, we thought like something funny happened, or like, I don't know, maybe one of them fell. So come to find out, the little sister said that her doll sat up by itself, and we just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, it's one of those dolls that like lays down but it'll sit up and says something. And I was like, okay. And she's like, no. She's like, but we weren't near it. And the little cousin said, there's no batteries in it. So me and my cousin go into the room, and we're kind of looking around, and there's toys all over, and there's a doll just sitting in the middle of the floor. Well, it was laying on the middle of the floor, and it sat up, and we both like jumped, and I remember like going over there and I kicked it, and there's no batteries inside of it. So after that, we started screaming, and we freaked out. We ran into her room, we shut the door, and we could still hear it like sit up and say whatever it says, and it freaked us out. About a few minutes went by. We're all freaking out in that room. We're trying to calm the younger ones down, and her older sisters come back. They come into the room, they ask us what's going on. Me and my cousin were telling them like what happened, and one of the sisters kind of got mad and was like, you guys knocked that off, you're just trying to scare these younger ones. And she's like, if you don't knock it off, she's like, I'm sending her home, talking about me. And she's like, I'll take her home right now. And she's like, okay. And like, we just went outside, and we're sitting out there for a while, kind of let things calm down, and they calmed the little ones down, had them watching TV. And my cousin decides to go grab the chair that was by the front door, and she moves it to the side of the house, and she decides to look in the window. So she pushes the window open, and she's peeking in there, and I just hear her go like, oh my God, and she like jumps down, and I was like, what? And she's like, it did it again. And so at this time we both stood up and we were peeking out, and it like, I don't know how, but it was like turned to face towards us, and it sat up and looked at us, and we screamed. And like, I just remember her cousins, like my cousins, her older sisters, they were like, hey, and like one of them was gonna come to the room, we could hear it, and then one of them we could hear like running towards the front door. So we took off, and we just went to like the neighbor's house. We went to the side of the house, and we're like watching, and we could hear them yelling like for us, and they're like, I'm gonna take her home. And like, we just kind of started laughing. And after that, we just waited for our friend across the street to show up. She eventually did, and it kind of ruined our night though, because the sisters told her mom and dad, and we weren't able to watch a scary movie. So we just ended up watching another movie, but we had fun. But I want to say that they threw that doll out that night. I believe they did. They should have if they didn't, but yeah, that freaked us out. And that also, like, thinking of this story reminded me of another one. So the house by the water tower, this was kind of like my first run-in paranormal wise at that house. I used to have this doll because when I moved in there, I was probably about 9 or 10, and I had this doll, and it was a Barbie doll. Well, it was like the My Kelly doll, like her little sister, and it was a real big huge baby, and I would carry it everywhere. I'd dress it up, and it was like my favorite thing ever. And one night I wake up, and it's not in my bed with me, so I'm kind of looking around, and I start hearing something speaking underneath my bed in a very deep voice. This doll didn't have anything like that. It wasn't a talking doll, like it was plush except for the hands and the face. And this voice just sounded real scary, like something from a movie. I remember like slowly going to the edge of my bed, and I went to peek underneath, and all that was under there was my doll. And I just kind of like dropped down to the ground, and right when I was about to grab it, it started speaking in this really scary voice. So after that, I like jumped up and I was gonna run out of my room, but I was like, man, I don't want that thing in my room. I ended up grabbing like a towel or a blanket or something, and I covered it, and it was still talking like that. And I remember running down the hallway, and I was gonna put it somewhere, but I didn't know where. And I took notice because like looking out the windows, I could tell like the sun was coming up, and like it was probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning or so. And I remember there was a closet right next to our front door, and it's where we kept all the jackets and stuff. So I opened it, I threw it in there, and by this time I was crying, and I shut the door, and I could still hear it in there. And I just remember hearing my dad say, hey. I was like, what are you doing? And like, I don't know if he thought I was gonna like go outside or something, because I used to be a sleepwalker. I actually have a story time on that I wanted to tell you guys about. But he goes over and he like kind of guards in front of the door, and I just looked at him, and he's like, oh, you're awake? And I was like, yeah. And I was like crying, and he takes me away from the door, and he actually walks me to their room, and he's like, if you want, you can lay in here. And I was like, okay. And like he kind of calmed me down, and he turned the TV on and had me watch something. And I asked if he could hear it. I asked if he could hear that thing in the closet, and he was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no. And he just kind of dismissed it. And anyway, I went to sleep, and the next morning when I woke up, because my dad had like headed to work and everything, but the next morning when I woke up, I went to go check on the doll and like see if it was still in there or see if it was a bad dream, and the doll was gone. And I didn't know where it was, but the towel or blanket or whatever that I had wrapped it in was sitting in there. So I kind of like started digging around, because there was like old like snowsuits and stuff in there, and like boots and like a couple blankets. And so I started digging around trying to find it, and it wasn't in there. So I was like, I wonder if I don't know why the towel or whatever would be in there. I was like, but maybe I dreamt it. So I go to my room and I start looking around. It's not under my bed, it's not on my bed, it's not in my closet or anything. And so I just kind of like didn't think anything of it. And then I finally asked my dad if he knew where the doll was, and he just kind of looked at me and he's like, what are you talking about? And I just looked at him. I was like, well, my doll was in the closet. And he's like no, he's like, it's not in there. So I don't know if he like got rid of it or anything, but after that happened, I did not see that doll again, which was sad. But then again, when I think back on it, I'm like, it's probably a good thing. But yeah, that's the paranormal story time I have for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Story time of the haunted house that I used to live in. You guys wanted scary stories again. This one is really, really creepy, so make sure that you get under the covers, turn on a light, because this one gets creepy. Just a little backstory on this house, because I feel like it is important. Me and my ex were looking for a house to buy together, and he had viewed this house when I wasn't there, and he fell in love with it. So we start doing all the paperwork, and there was some things that he didn't tell me at the time, because he knew that I was spiritual and that I wouldn't be okay with it, but he loved the house and he thought it was fine because he wasn't really spiritual at the time. He said after the papers were signed that there was some weird decor in the house from the previous people who lived there, and he said that it kind of seemed like they might have been satanic, that there was just very interesting choices of decor. There was this weird painting that looked like it was demonic. I don't remember exactly what he told me the painting was, and that there was just strange things placed around the house that kind of looked a little bit off. And I, of course, was very upset, and I was like, why didn't you tell me? I don't want to live in a house that any negative practices were in. I don't want to live in a haunted house. I don't want to live in a house that has any kind of demons or anything like that. And he said, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And it, in fact, was not fine. So I'm going to tell you guys the experiences that I had in this house, and then I can tell you guys some of the incidents that my family had, as well as I had family in and out of the house if you guys are interested in hearing their stories. Let's jump into the first thing that happened. So we had just moved into this house. It was my ex, myself, my son, and I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. The first experience happened when it was just me and my son. He was about 2 years old at the time. I had just given him a late night bath before we were going to bed. We were in the master bathroom, and the way that the master bathroom was it was the bathroom, and then at the end of the bathroom there was this walk-in closet.
So I was drying him off in front of the bath, and he was looking over my shoulder up into the closet behind me, and he said, "Mommy, who is that?" So immediately I'm terrified, and I'm remembering that this house might have had some people previously living there who might have been inviting some negative energy into the home. So I'm scared, and I don't want to look behind me, but I do what every woman does in a scary movie, and I start looking behind me very slowly, and I'm terrified about what I might see behind me, and I'm turning, and I don't see anything. And so I look back at my son, and I'm like, "Honey, I don't see anything." And he said, all while not breaking eye contact with whatever he's looking at, "No, Mommy, who is that?" I'm like, "There's nobody there." And he's, "No, who is that?" And I'm terrified. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be that stupid woman in a scary movie, and I'm going to have to get up and go inspect. My son is so sure that there is somebody behind me. And so I'm like going, and I am like scared. I turn on the light, and I'm like, maybe he means, what is that? So I'm like looking, and I see like a nail kind of sticking out of the wall, and I'm like, is it this? And he said, "No, Mommy, who is that?" And I want to cry at this point. I'm freaking out, and I'm like, is it this? Like pointing to something else. He said, "No, Mommy, who is that?" And he's getting frustrated with me because I'm not seeing what he's seeing. And the whole time he's not breaking eye contact, and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna die. We're gonna get possessed. We're gonna die. This is it. This is like every scary movie. I knew we shouldn't have gotten this house. This was a terrible idea. I'm panicking. We're the only ones awake. So my son, although he was 2, he could very clearly see that I'm starting to panic. So at this point, he stops looking, and he's looking at me, and I'm panicking. And I'm like, I don't see anything. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? So I'm pointing, and I'm like, is it this? And he just kind of stops for a second. He's watching me, and he's like, "Yeah, that." And oh my gosh, my sweet, sweet son could just see that I was panicking, and he was just trying to calm me down at that moment and just let it go. But I knew deep down that he was just trying to comfort me. And I was terrified. And we had just moved into this house, and my son was already seeing things. And as some of you may know, kids are more sensitive to seeing things than adults, and I knew this as well. But I'm like, I have to let it go. We just bought this house. We just moved into this house. What are you gonna do? I mean, it was just like all the scary movies. What are you gonna do? But as time went on, there was more things happening. But this video is getting long, so I am going to make another part. I will link it right here in a playlist in case you guys are interested in hearing about the other experiences that I had in this house. So I'm going to cut it here, and I will see you in the next one. Of the story time of the haunted house that I used to live in. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I would highly suggest to go back and watch that one first, just so you have a backstory of the house. The next thing that I had experienced was a few months later, and this was after my daughter was born. And of course, she had a bunch of toys that made noises, as a lot of babies do. And of course, I had an experience with one of these noise-making toys. It was late, everybody was asleep, I had already gotten my kids to sleep, and I was just going around the house turning off the lights, making sure that everything was put away, and I did leave a couple of toys laying on the floor. I was tired, I just wanted to go to bed. So I was walking through the living room to my room when I was walking past one of her toys, and it said in a really creepy voice, "Goodbye." I cannot. Oh my gosh, this still gives me chills when I think about it. It was so creepy. Of course, I froze in place, and I start turning around, and I'm looking at the toy on the floor, and it's quiet. I was like, yep, big nope, and I went straight to the room. I jumped under the covers, and I said, absolutely not today. After this, I made sure to always pick up that toy and put it in the toy box and close the lid. That way I would hopefully never have to hear it again. The third and final thing that I had personally experienced in this house was right after I had given both of my kids a bath. Again, a very vulnerable moment. I had brought them into the bedroom to dry them off, and the bathroom/closet area door was open, and my son was looking in there, and he said, "There's something in there with glowing yellow eyes." Huh? Come again? What did you just say? And he said, "There's something with glowing yellow eyes looking at me, Mommy." Oh my God. I thought I heard a noise. So I stopped drying my daughter off for a second, and I look at him and I said, "Are you joking with me right now? Are you playing with Mommy? This isn't funny." And he said, "No, there's something crouching and looking at me with glowing yellow eyes." Crouching? crouching. And I want to believe that he's just making this up and he has just this crazy imagination. But he's telling me in detail that there is something in there in the dark, again in the closet area, that is crouching and staring at him with glowing yellow eyes. So of course I'm freaking out. I'm like, are you joking with me? You better not be joking. This isn't funny. And again, he can see I'm panicking, so he's kind of laughing off. He's like, oh, yeah, it's just a bumblebee, mommy. It's just a bumblebee. Bumblebees have glowing yellow eyes, right? And I was like, ugh. And I never liked swearing in front of my kids, but in this moment, I was so panicked. I said, you need to tell me the truth. If there is something actually in there, then we need to get the out of here. He's like, no, it's just a bumblebee, mommy. It's just a bumblebee. And I know you guys are probably like, why didn't you just run out of there? Why didn't you get your kids and run out of there? The thing was, it was the middle of winter. We are in the negatives. It's probably at least -20. My kids had just gotten out of the bath. They're wet. I'm worried that if I bring them out right now, they're going to freeze because it's going to take my car a very long time to warm up. So I try to take a breath, go grab our dog, and I'm like, Milo, go in the bathroom. And I'm trying to get him to go in the bathroom, and he's acting fine. So I'm like, okay, we're good. Because we know if an animal starts acting weird, that's when you should be really scared. So I'm like, okay, we're good, he's fine. But I went ahead and closed that bathroom door. I got the kids out of the room. I closed that bedroom door, and we just hung out in the living room for the rest of the day until my ex got back, because I was not going back in that bedroom. But speaking of my dog, I just remembered something else that had happened. One day we were just in the living room hanging out, and my dog, who wasn't really a dog that would like bark or growl or anything like that, he just shoots up and he's looking towards our room and he starts growling. So yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that that house was haunted. There was something there. And on top of all that, my son would have nightmares almost daily in that house. And when me and my ex had split and I had gotten out of that house, my son had made a comment that kind of pieced everything together. And at that point, I wasn't in denial anymore about the hauntings in this house. He said after a couple of days at staying at my family's house, I used to have nightmares every night, but I don't have nightmares anymore here. Those were the experiences that I had in this house. My family had some other experiences, my brother specifically when he was house sitting one time, and his story is equally, if not more terrifying than anything that I ever experienced in this house. So let me know if you guys would be interested in hearing this story, and I will go ahead and link it in the playlist. I will see you guys in the next one.
Indigenous Spooky Stories Part 4. So like I said, I've always been this weirdo that would bring up scary stories when I'd travel, and one story I've heard from Indigenous people all over the place is a story about this tall, dark guy. Sometimes he's really handsome, sometimes he's like, you don't see his face, he's more like a shadow. Sometimes he's got a big hat on, or a big coat, or like hooves for feet. But like, I get instantly creeped out anytime anyone brings this up because I've had my own experience with this. So my story, I was working in this small town in the Yukon for the summer, me and my besties. And we're, like one evening being bad kids and drinking beer and walking around town. And we seen this big, like this tall guy standing outside the band office. And it was kind of dim, like this was later in the summer. And they had like a big orange light so you could only see like his silhouette. And when you live in a small town, you learn to recognize like people's shapes or like their certain jackets. None of us knew who this was. And he like picked up the cigarette butt can outside and started to slowly drink it, and we're looking at each other like, what the hell is going on? And someone yelled, hey, what are you doing? Put that down. And he like froze, and then he put it down and he stopped and he stared at us, and he like didn't start walking or say anything. And my friend's cousin was the first to get creeped out. Like, this community has lots of stories with this like tall dark guy. And he's like, you girls quit talking to it. We need to go. Like, this isn't safe. We need to get out of here. So we started walking, and we're, like making sure we weren't being followed, and it wasn't following us. So when we got to the other side of the town, we crossed the bridge. My friends, some of them were being goofy. They like laid on the bridge and they were like laughing away and whatever. And me and my bestie were standing up, and that shadow, like the tall guy, stepped onto the bridge on the other side, and then he got down on all fours, started crawling to the other side of the bridge, like to the side of the bridge, straight up the metal wall, over and straight down, like his face pointing down like a spider. And holy shit, like I got so scared. My heart dropped to my stomach. I was like almost in tears. Me and my bestie, we like looked at each other and booked it. Our friends started running after us, like, what are we running from? And yeah, it was just, if my bestie wasn't there and didn't see it too, I probably would have like talked myself out of believing what I seen. But it was so freaking creepy. And anytime I have to drive through that town on that bridge, I get like little goosebumps thinking about what we seen. So what do you think it is? Like, does your community have stories of this tall, dark figure too?
So I was thinking about this all weekend and I was going to make a video, but I just didn't want to get the details wrong and I kind of wanted permission before I posted it first. So I talked to a cousin about it today. So this story happened to 3 of my cousins in northern Saskatchewan. And it happened around 2005, 2006. So like the cousins, I'm going to call them S, L, and K. They were in S's vehicle and they're in another community, which is about 2 hours away from where we currently live. And when they were on their way home, like sometime during the night, it must have been pretty late, they ended up getting a flat tire, so they had to sleep on the side of the road. And they had to have been like a fair amount of kilometers away from the next town because they weren't able to go and get help. So like I said, they had to sleep in the vehicle. And about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, they said a really nice red sports car pulled up into to the front of the vehicle. And S and K were too scared to go out and like approach this person, so they sent L out. So L approaches this vehicle and she said it was a really handsome guy in a red sports car, which would be like extremely, extremely rare, like where we live, because where we all live, you like pretty much need like heavy duty vehicles or like trucks. So anyway, back to the story. Elle approaches the vehicle. She says it's a really, really handsome guy. And he said that he was willing to take her for help. And she basically said, like, you can't take all 3 of us. He said, no, I don't have enough room. Elle looked around the vehicle and looked around inside of the vehicle, and she said that there was nothing in there and that there was room for all of them, but he really only wanted to take her. And after she said, like, no thanks, it's okay, like, this guy just, you know, sped off. So, like, very, very weird situation to be in. They had said that, like, around that time, people were saying that they were having sightings of the devil in a red sports car. And after that incident had occurred, they asked people like around that area, like who has a vehicle of the kind. And that was the story that they came up with. Creepy.
Story time of the time that I saw a jinxiahuk or a little person. This is my how many time trying to make it. I struggle telling this story because it's scary. When I was a kid, me and my cousin used to go to the park almost every single day. This day was no different. We were walking past the high school when I noticed something moving with the corner of my eye, so I looked over and I froze. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing because I heard stories about jinxiahuks growing up, but I wasn't sure if they were real or not, but I was seeing a little person with my own eyes. And it wasn't wearing the native clothing in the photos that I shared in the last video, but it was instead wearing this like elf outfit, like from head to toe, the hat, the outfit, the buckle, the pointy shoes, everything, but it was all yellow. As it was running, it had jumped and it's like everything went in slow motion for a second. So it's running and then it just looks over at me. I cannot. So it looked over at me with this creepy smile and it skin, I'll go ahead and insert the photo that I asked AI to make. Its skin was like this bluish gray color. It had scars all over its face. It had this big creepy grin, and its eyes were yellow. As it was frozen in midair and smiling its creepy smile, it turned back, and then it's like everything went in fast motion again. It ran off. And I was in shock. And I was thinking, like, surely this is my imagination. Like, there's no way I just saw what I just saw. And so I looked over at my cousin and realized that she also was frozen in place, staring in that direction. And I was like, did you see what I just saw? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, there's no way we saw the same thing. So I'm like asking her, like, what did you see? And she said, I saw a little person. And I'm like, oh, what outfit was it wearing? What color? I was asking her all these descriptive things, and she was telling me exactly what I saw. At that point, I realized I was not imagining things. I was not seeing things. So we turn around, we bolted out of there. We're terrified and like screaming at this point, running, and we went home and we did not go out for the rest of the day. So nothing happened. All it did was look at us, but that was terrifying enough in and of itself. I'd love to hear your guys' stories. If you didn't see my last video, I put my email in there so you can email me your stories about seeing little people or the stories that you've heard, maybe from a friend or a family member. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Bye!
I'm in Algodones, Mexico. We spent the night here. I think we're going to spend the weekend here. Our air conditioner's not fixed yet in Yuma, so we plan on staying out here, just me, my daughter, and the baby. But anyways, I was thinking about some Hopi stories. I'm full-blooded Navajo. My parents are Navajo. My grandparents are Navajo. My Nolly's side are Navajo, so I'm full. But we live in Pinon by the close to the Hopi fence. We are like on the border where they have all their those relocation houses. Is that what they're called? But anyways, one time we were coming back through there with my grandma. I know I was younger than 10 because I could fit in the back of junk. We were coming back from St. George, Utah, and we went through Hopi Culture Center. It was early in the morning. My aunt was driving, and she got tired, so she pulled over at the Culture Center to sleep for a little while, and we were almost home, but she got tired. My grandparents were already sleeping, and I was in the back. They went yard selling, so they bought some couches and some other miscellaneous junk. And I was between the couches, so I could fit in there, and that's how I rode all the way back from St. George. But I was sleeping in the back. We must have not been sleeping for too long because my aunt jumped up, and she said she had seen one of those Kachina dolls standing by her window on the driver's side. So she jumped up and she turned the truck on, and she says, "Sean, get in the front," she said. And it was a single cab, the truck, so it had one of those sliding windows, and I slid in there, and I jumped on my grandma and grandpa's lap, and I don't know what was going on, but she scared us. And she took off on the dirt road. It wasn't paved then. She took off on that road, and it was dirt road. And she was going really fast, and my grandma was telling her, what's wrong, what's wrong? And she's all like, is he behind us, is he behind us? And we're like, what's going on? And she's like, there's a Kachina chasing us. And she was telling us that that Kachina doll was right by us. And when I looked back, she says, don't look back. And she's all freaking us out, but we drove all the way home like that.
Now, of course, that was part 2, but that was just a glimpse into the eerie world of Indigenous spooky stories. I love covering folklore in general, but I absolutely love folklore stories like these because not carry a little spooky story, but they also carry very heavy sentiments and values in them. It's about honoring the history and the warnings behind the tales. And one thing, if you haven't figured it out by now, the kid loves a good cautionary baraki, okay? We love it. But that is it for today. My name is Luna, this is the Mystic Muse, and I'll catch you guys for the next video. Stay spooky, stay curious, make sure that you drink your water, mind your business, and stay prayed up and protected. And as always, Luna loves you. I'll be back with another video for you guys if the spirits allow it.
From it when I give that back. Wait, give it right back. Did they give it right back? This look pretty, can I sit right back? Wanna give it right back, baby? Yeah, like that.